Why were mentions of al-Qaeda and extremist groups scrubbed from the talking points? Why were the fact that the CIA had been warning the State Department, why was that taken out of the talking points? What you see here in this 100 pages, and I think we have it all online at CNN.com, what you see here is an interagency process of people from the FBI, people from the CIA, people from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the National Security Council, the Nationals, and others, the national security staffers, all of them weighing in, trying to come on the same page about these things. And you see the process of why the mention of Islamic extremists is taken out, why violent demonstration is put in instead of attack, why all these decisions are made. And you can believe it or not, but it's the reason we see in black and white the CIA making their objections, the State Department making their objections.
We've posted, by the way, all of those documents on CNN.com.
You know, the important thing to keep in mind is that these so-called talking points were being put together to give to members of Congress, who would then talk to the American public about it. And there was a real concern, particularly on the part of the State Department, don't get in the way of the investigation, and don't get out ahead of ourselves, and don't talk about classified information that the State Department had not been able to talk about itself. After all, you were giving this to members of Congress, and there's not a great deal of trust.
And you know, I interviewed the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Mike Rogers, the next day, September 12th. He was here in the Situation Room. He had been briefed. He had been briefed by the CIA. He had been briefed by others in the U.S. government. And in the exchange I had, because I pointed out to him, I don't believe in coincidences. On the anniversary of 9/11, this looked like a pretty sophisticated terrorist attack. It looked like it was an assassination plot against the United States ambassador. And he basically said the same thing. He didn't say anything about this video, this anti-Muslim video. Right. He had already been told, apparently, that this was a pretty concerted, direct assault on the U.S. operation in Benghazi. And then for Susan Rice to say a few days later, well, it looks like it was response to the anti-Muslim video. That's what makes so many people upset.
And what's significant about that also is that video was causing a lot of demonstrations, violent demonstrations throughout the Arab and Muslim world, in Tunisia, in Cairo, Egypt, and other places.
That's true. In Cairo and other places.
Right,
there was an American restaurant in Beirut that was attacked. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the Benghazi operation was just response to that.
Intelligence sources at that moment, intelligence sources on the ground, did not think that it was in response to that anti-Muslim video.
Right. That's what we heard from the Charge.
It was completely non-controversial at that time to assume that it might have had something to do with it at that particular moment in time.
But 5 days later, they knew pretty much what was going on.
As it turns out, I think the question will still be asked about why that really was the only thing that actually survived.
The scrubbing of the talking points.
The scrubbing of the talking points.
And I think Jake makes an excellent point. As controversial as the talking points were, and we focus in, and this document focuses on the talking points, the two other issues that are not addressed by the release of these documents: why was the U.S. ambassador there to begin with at such a dangerous time? Why was he there with limited security? And then why didn't the U.S. military, special operations forces, do more once the attack started to try to save those Americans?
And those are the questions that were asked at the congressional hearing, particularly by Mr. Hicks.
And one other point to make about this talking points that were released and the emails surrounding them is everybody's talking now about the deputies meeting. That's the meeting that took place at the White House Saturday morning after the attack, but before Susan Rice went on the Sunday shows the next morning. The deputies meeting. Now, what I've been told by senior administration officials is that the talking points were a very, very small part of that meeting. What they were talking about, what they were concerned about, was the fact that the Arab Spring was spiraling out of control, that there were demonstrations here, demonstrations there, Tunisia, Cairo, Yemen, and they wanted to make sure that Americans were safe, and that was the focus. At the end of the meeting, according to a senior administration official, Mike Morrell, the deputy CIA director, stands up. He says, I am going to take, essentially, I'm going to take ownership of the talking points. I hear the State Department's concerns. I have concerns. I'm going to take control of this. Dennis McDonough, now the White House Chief of Staff, says, thanks, Mike. And that, I'm told, was the only discussion of the talking points in that meeting.
Hold on for a minute. Our Chief White House correspondent, Jessica Yellen, is joining us for a little context right now. I know you're speaking to officials over there. What are you learning, Jessica?
Hi, Wolf. Well, as Jake says, officials here are adamant that these talking points should now disabuse the public of the idea that they were up to any kind of political trickery, that, in fact, all they were doing was hashing out a normal kind of email discussion about an ongoing, what they call fluid, very tense situation overseas, and a very sort of boring, mundane discussion about talking points over here, that this wasn't their number one concern. What their number one concern was, what their number one concern was the ongoing protests that were taking place in Tunisia, in front of embassies in Pakistan, in front of embassies throughout the region at the time. And these talking points were sort of a very tertiary concern that was even pushed to the back of their deputy CIA director's agenda. He didn't get to them until hours after they were sent to him on the day he was supposed to review them. That is why, for example, they say he put off reworking them until after his deputies meeting. So that is that's their take, and that's what they told us. As Jake has reported, and as Gloria emphasized, they said that it was the CIA who really took out those things that the White House has been hammered for example, taking out al-Qaeda, changing the word attack to demonstration. All of that came out from the CIA. So, Wolf, that is what senior administration officials are emphasizing. Now, separately, I would point out that when you look through these papers, there are some other things that the administration isn't pointing out. For example, there is one email from a unnamed person whose name is taken out, which goes through a list of things that happened at the deputies meeting, which they say, the officials say, is wrong in every specific. Every single thing in this email is wrong. They say this person outlines that there was heavy editing in the emails because they had to develop more appropriate talking points, and that they have to rework it after the meeting to make it better for the Sunday show. Everything about it, they say, is wrong. We asked why it was so wrong in detail. They couldn't specify. Also, at the end of the documents, it indicates that Director of the CIA, Petraeus, had concerns, and it said, I spoke to the director earlier about the State Department's deep concerns about mentioning the warnings that the CIA had made about Libya before and the other work done on this. You will still want to re-emphasize that in your note to the Director of Central Intelligence. Thanks. So there were a lot of things that they couldn't explain to us that contradicted their story.
All right, hold on, everyone, hold on for a moment. We are just learning that the president will be making a statement to the American people on the IRS scandal that's unfolding, a separate scandal unfolding on Capitol Hill. Right at the top of the hour, 6 p.m. Eastern, we'll, of course, have live coverage here in the Situation Room. The president speaking on the IRS scandal from the White House. In about 35 minutes or so from now, we'll have live coverage when the president makes his statement on the IRS. That's a whole separate scandal. We'll get into that in a moment. But let me bring up Dana Bash up on Capitol Hill. Dana, we're watching all of these investigations unfold, the Benghazi investigation, the IRS investigation, the Associated Press phone conversations investigation. There's three at the same time. It's almost unprecedented, at least in my opinion, having covered Washington for a long time, for three such investigations to be brewing at the same time. I know you're standing outside the Speaker's office, John Boehner. He and other Republicans had been asking the White House to release all of these emails involving the so-called Benghazi talking points. Now they have been released. Are we getting any reaction yet from Republicans up on the Hill? I think we may have lost Dana, unfortunately. But she's standing outside the Speaker's office, and as we know, the Speaker and others have been saying to the White House, release all these emails. They were shown in private to members of Congress. Now they have been released. Once again, if you want to take a look at them, you can go to CNN.com. We've posted all of them. All right, so let's move on and talk a little bit about the IRS. Gloria, you know, all of a sudden, the president now about to go and deliver a statement on the IRS investigation. The fact that the IRS, officials at the IRS decided to specifically target conservative groups, Tea Party organizations, others with the name Tea Party or Patriot or groups like that. This is a huge scandal that's unfolding right now. The president is outraged. He says he didn't know anything about it until he read about it and heard about it from the news media the other day, but he's going to make a statement now.
I'm not surprised because in talking to senior advisors at the White House, they believe that this is sort of one of the scandals that they can actually push aside because they're on the same side of the American people as this one. They're not fighting it. The Republicans are on their side. The Democrats are on their side. Nobody is supporting the IRS in any of this. And so I was kind of surprised the president didn't last night when the Inspector General report came out actually go and make a statement apologizing to the American people and saying we're going to get to the bottom of it. Maybe that's what he's going to do today. I was told yesterday that they intend to take what one advisor told me was meaningful action. So we'll have to see what that is. He is limited in who he can fire there. Most are civil servants.
He's asked his Treasury Secretary, Jack Lew, to take some immediate action already.
It's obvious that this, of the three scandals we have brewing right now, or controversies, depending on your point of view, one, Benghazi, two, the IRS improperly targeting conservative groups, and three, the Department of Justice subpoenaing broadly a number of phone records of reporters at the Associated Press and also other media organizations. It is obvious.
When you say other media organizations, besides the Associated Press?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying they're also in a separate war with the New York Times
about a different
but that general idea. But my point is just, of these three controversies, the fact that the president is going to address this one shows you which one they actually think could hurt them. They obviously do not think that the Benghazi scandal, they wouldn't have released 100 emails if they didn't think that they needed to do so, but I don't think that they're worried about that long term. I think that they believe that people see it as a partisan divide. 40% think the president's telling the truth, 40% say he isn't, 20% say they don't know, which is pretty much what means nothing. But the IRS scandal, that's something every American understands. Big government, big brother, improperly going after me because of what I believe.
And he needs to show the American people that he's on their side with this, that there's no fault line here, that he wants to get to the bottom of this, and that his administration is taking responsibility and trying to get to the bottom of it. That's how he can dispose of it, not dispose of it, but essentially deal with it and say, I am going to fix this. This was wrong. I am with you. Yeah. Because, as Jake just said, this is politically damaging.
Because they are clearly in damage control mode right now over at the White House, releasing all these documents after months refusing to release all these documents. And now the president going out and speaking on the IRS investigation. We're going to hear from him in about a half an hour. Let's go up to Capitol Hill. I think we've reconnected with our chief congressional correspondent, Dana Basha. Dana, you're on the phone. You're right outside the Speaker's office. Is that right?
Well, I'm in the hallway between the House floor and the Speaker's office, and the reason is because there are votes going on right now, and I'm waiting to try to talk to him. He actually is swearing in a new member of Congress, Mark Sanford. That's what's going on right now. But as I'm standing here, I just had a chance to talk to the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, Dutch Ruppersberger. He's important for lots of reasons, but most importantly, he is the one who asked for these talking points in the first place, right after the attack in Benghazi, so that members of Congress would have a sense of what they could say to the media, what would not be classified. I just talked to him, and he said that he is very happy, very relieved that the White House finally put these out, so that from his perspective, we can all see what really went on with the back and forth and trying to decide what people like him should and shouldn't say in interviews. And he is a Democrat, so he believes that what really went on was not something that was nefarious from the White House's point of view, but was done to protect sources and methods and so forth from the point of view of the CIA. That's what Dutch Ruppersberger said. And when it comes to the Speaker, who as late as this morning had a press conference and called on the White House to release these emails, I'm waiting to see what he has to say about that.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll welcome the release of these emails. And Dana,